Welcome to the Living a Nordic Life podcast, where we explore a simpler, cosier and more intentional life the Nordic way. I'm Fiona McKenna, your Nordic living guide and founder of Living a Nordic Life, where I share all things Nordic living and show you that a Nordic life is the way to bring intentional calm and healthy habits into your own life, wherever you are in the world. Are you looking for ways to bring simplicity, coziness and calm into your life? Well, let me show you how. Visit the Living a Nordic Life website to explore how I can help you on your journey to simple, healthy and happy calm, the Nordic way. You can subscribe to the podcast right here. And if you want regular inspirational emails sent with love from Norway and straight to your inbox, don't forget to subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters. And so now let's dive into our episode. Hello and welcome to this podcast. And this one is really special because I'm not alone. I'm joined by Ines Batterton of My Nordic Garden. Ines and her husband Eric live and work in Ontario in Canada, which is a very similar climate to here in the Nordics. And they teach people how to design and build really beautiful edible gardens, kitchen gardens. They have an impressive array of experience. Together, they've worked at botanical gardens, nurseries, and farms all over Europe, honing their skills as talented and inspiring garden designers. Ines is a regional coach at Gardenery, specialising in kitchen gardens. And Eric designs and builds all the hardware for the gardens, from the beautiful trellises to their fabulous raised beds. In fact, between them, they design, plan, and build your kitchen garden and even teach you how to take care of it. But not only that, Ines has created a beautiful range of calendars and kitchen garden planners, so you never need to wonder again what you should be planting or harvesting. So hi, Ines. Lovely to see you. Tell us a little bit about My Nordic Garden and how you got started.
Hi, thank you for this beautiful introduction. Okay. Yeah, My Nordic Garden started in 2020 as a business. Originally, I only wanted to start with a blog documenting a new kitchen garden here in Ontario. Because as you said in the introduction, Eric and I, we traveled a bit through Europe, and we lived and had a garden in Ireland and in Germany. And then when we came here to Canada, like my husband is from Canada, that's why we ended up here. But the climate was very different and we were insecure of what to do and how to start the garden project. And there was just nothing like that was really helpful for us, for our region and the climate here. Out there we could use as information. And yeah, and that kind of brought us to, we just do things on our own and learn as we go. And yeah, and a year later, we were at the point we had our garden out there. It was flourishing. We had our polytunnel, and I came across Gardenery, and they offered a course to become a kitchen garden consultant. And I was like, you know what? This is something I really love doing. It is absolutely down my aisle. And I was anyways like thinking of reorganizing my career, because I was a teacher before and that was just not what I wanted and couldn't do for a living. And then with relocating to Canada, it was a whole different story anyways. So gardening was the thing I loved doing. And then I took the course and I became a kitchen garden coach, and we started My Nordic Garden. Yeah, I was from the beginning taking care of the consultations and the designs. And Eric joined in. He said, you know what, I'm gonna help you. That was the initial thought, like, I'm gonna help you starting the business. I can build. And yeah, and then that was the beginning of it. That was not just helping. So we're doing this together and he is in it full. Yeah, and this is basically a heartfelt project for us that turned into our business. And us having two little children, gardening and growing our own organic food became more and more important for us than it was in previous years. And with, yeah, the way the world goes and with climate change and everything, we noticed that a lot of people are, having a change of mind and going in a different direction. They want to live more healthy and more sustainable. And this is exactly where we come in. We help families to create and also to maintain their own aesthetically pleasing kitchen garden, because we want to create something that also looks nice and you want to be there. It's not the odd vegetable patch in the last corner of your yard. And we're there basically from the first consultation to the first harvest. This is what I always say, like they're not never alone in the process. And wherever they start from, we pick them up and guide them towards a successful garden, because we have the whole array on offer, from like the basic consultation to just, okay, you have to start your seedlings at that and that date, and then you plant them outside, and the next batch then in May, and so on, to helping people with delivering a full design, even as far as like pollinator gardens that are always a part of our kitchen garden designs, and to the whole kitchen garden installation. So basically whatever you need, we help you with getting started and growing.
So you're really teaching everything that you've learned yourself as well, and then some expertise. That's brilliant. Yeah, and it's a really challenging environment, isn't it? You'd think it would be quite easy or not too difficult. I mean, I've made so many mistakes trying to grow banana palms outside, for example. Tried a few times. They do in Stavanger, which is on the west coast, but I tried a few times, even covering them up. But and things like rosemary, you make these mistakes, don't you? And without some guidance, it can be quite expensive.
Yeah, it is, and it's discouraging, and then you just give up, and that's what we want. Yeah, don't want.
No, you don't.
Mm.
So what exactly is a kitchen garden?
It is a garden that you use to cook in your kitchen. It's close to your kitchen. Of course, it's outside the house. Like, it's not a garden in the kitchen. I often get that question too. So it's not an indoor garden, it's an outdoor garden, but it's close to where your kitchen is located, so that you just kind of jump outside, grab whatever herbs or greens you need to cook dinner or make your salad, and you just use it. It's kind of part of the house, or your environment, an attachment of the house, or an additional room, basically. That's part of your lifestyle. And that just provides you with fresh ingredients for whatever you eat all day long. You can start from breakfast basically on to dinner.
Say also kitchen gardens, they derive from almost from the Middle Ages. Back in the days before mass agriculture, people used to have gardens. Everybody used to have a garden outside of their house, and they used to grow a little bit of vegetables, and they used to just go outside. What am I gonna have for dinner? I'm gonna make a pumpkin soup. I'm gonna take this squash. I'm gonna make a spaghetti squash, or it's just trying to kind of bring that back. So there's kind of less, since today vegetables, they go from, let's say, from Peru, and then they're packaged elsewhere, somewhere in China or something, and then they're shipped all the way back over here. And we're trying to cut all that out and just go for the fresh organic produce. You know what's in it, you know what you use to grow it, you know what you put in your compost, you didn't spray it. And so you know what you're getting. It's a lot more healthy. And I just think, it's really, really good for the environment. It's good for people.
Tastes different as well, doesn't it? When you pick something and eaten it straight away from the garden, it tastes how it's supposed to taste.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And it's so rewarding.
And you do find a difference in some of the things, like especially the herbs that you grow in your garden. Wow, they are so how would you say,
Potent.
yeah, a lot more potent when they're coming from your garden than when they've, sit in a plastic package for the last 3 weeks before, they ended up in your
Mm.
grocery store. They lose all their potency, all their flavor is
Mm.
gone. It's a lot better, I find.
Nah, it is. Yeah. And I think that's also a lot, like very often the way people start, where first they start growing herbs and then it goes towards like lettuces, greens, and then tomatoes and the harder plants coming.
So where would you start, or where would you advise somebody to start if they wanted to start their own kitchen garden and they've never done it before? If they were starting from scratch, maybe had a little bit of gardening experience, but really didn't know where to start, where would you suggest they started? Or how would you suggest they started?
Definitely with like what I just said, like with growing herbs and greens, because they're easy to keep alive. Like if we really have no experience, some plants are just a bit tricky, like tomatoes and cucumbers. You have to plant them at the right time. You have to prune them and also regularly check them for diseases and things. With herbs, you're usually on the safe side because there's hardly a pest that attacks herbs, and they are very, very hardy. The same with greens, and greens also don't need that much sunlight, so they're much easier and simpler to just grow wherever you have space, basically.
Yeah, so something you could start on your windowsill if you wanted to, really.
Yeah, exactly. Even outside or or indoors even. Yeah, and you don't need a lot of space with those plants either. You can just start with a little bucket basically on the balcony if you want, or a little planter. It doesn't have to be a whole full install kitchen garden right from the beginning if you want to try and learn as you go.
Well, that's a good way to start, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how would you go about progressing if you'd start to grow some herbs, for example, on your kitchen windowsill, and then decided you would grow some things outside in a bucket, for example, like you said, and then you wanted to grow something a bit bigger and expand it a little bit? How would you go about doing that?
I would always start with with my first like raised bed or planter.
Yeah.
Like we are big fans of raised beds. I know there are controversial opinions and discussions going on about that part, but if you don't have a lot of time and not a lot of experience, you're much better off using raised beds because it's like much like less maintenance and pest issues you have to deal with than if you would grow in ground.
Again, it's easier to control also what you're putting in there in terms of your soil and your compost, and you know exactly your proportions.
Yeah.
And you can feed it when you need to, can't you, and keep adding to it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, often we have soil conditions like our natural soil, it's too poor, for example. Like we have sandy soil here, so it needs a lot of compost, a lot of amendment to really grow healthy and well producing vegetables. And then if you would just create your perfect mixture, put it in the raised bed, and there you go. It's a much easier start and more motivating and successful in the end too.
Yeah, I love my raised beds. We've had our vegetable patch at one point in the garden, but on the ground. And I tried to do no dig, but we've got so many pine trees in the garden that the roots, although I think the tapping root is quite deep, but all the little roots are near the surface, and they came straight up into the vegetable patch. And after a couple of years, it was hopeless. But now that we've got raised beds, it's so much easier to control. And we add our own compost, and I even compost through the autumn. I compost within the beds, so it's ready for spring. It's great. I love it. Nothing grows here in the winter.
No, it's same here.
I wish it did. It's going inside in the winter.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, they are brilliant, aren't they? But do you make your own compost as well?
Yeah, we're using our own compost. We're making our own compost. There are also there are many ways to create your own compost. We are doing the slow way, just usually because we don't have the time to flip our compost regularly to really like hot composting. But it takes about 2 years in our climate conditions if you don't flip it regularly. But if it's about 2 years, then you have a good value. So we ended up with four
Yeah, we have
compost,
4 buckets.
4 buckets basically
4 buckets, yeah.
that we can fill like continuously.
And they were easy to make. I made them out of old pallets, and we just put our produce in there. Well, produce,
So,
our
yeah.
clippings, and I use a lot of the sawdust I use from the cedar. So I kind of mix that in there with that as an organic material composting. So yeah, I would like to flip it a lot more.
Yep.
But,
Eventually.
It's hard work, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's definitely good exercise. But there are somehow always like other things more pressuring. No, we just need to the kids have to get older and then they can do these jobs.
Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah. And it's fun as well for kids, isn't it? Because the things that
It
you
is.
find in the compost bins.
Yeah.
So many worms.
Yeah.
Didn't you used to do that when you were a child?
Yeah.
Weren't you always in the compost
Yeah.
bin?
Well, I wouldn't say it like that, but yeah, definitely. I was always about my grandparents and my mom's garden, and yeah, flipping compost was just part of the spring, and then we put it like through those big sieves to make it really like fine and crumbly. That was one of the big tasks in spring, and then we made our own soil mixtures. It was just funny. Like the other day, I realized that my mom did exactly the same things we are teaching now through Gardenery, like the soil mixture with compost and sand and topsoil. I never thought about that, but that's exactly what we did.
I mean, it's almost a lost art with our generation.
Yeah.
Like, everyone from our a lot from our generation are used to just going to the grocery store and, where does your food come from? The grocery store. No, it doesn't.
Yeah. I think people need
to relearn again.
Yeah.
How to grow your own.
But also how easy it is to do it once you get started.
Yeah.
I mean, even composting can be done in a kitchen, can't it? With these, the name of that Japanese system with the lactobacteria or something like that in there. And you could do it in a bucket in the kitchen, and it doesn't have any smell either, which is something. Yeah. I mean, I know compost, when it's old, it smells lovely, doesn't it? It's got that lovely earth.
It does, yeah.
But when it's composting, it's not quite so fragrant.
That's true.
I actually recently worked for a industrial composting facility. I was actually the maintenance mechanic on the machines and everything that they use there, and it's very interesting processes. And yeah, it's almost the same thing as what you would do at home. You know what I mean? Turn it and wait, and turn it and wait, and there you go. But you should say around here, we actually our municipality is actually giving away little compost machines that you put in your kitchen. And what's the turnover rate on that? It was something like 4 to 6 weeks or something, and then you actually have compost. Like,
was it even that long?
I don't even think. Yeah, it wasn't even that
within
long.
Days, I think. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. It's a really cool little machine.
Incredible, and I mean that's really something that's going to motivate people, isn't it, to do it?
Yeah.
Think of all that food waste that then is not being chucked out, or vegetable waste, I guess.
Yeah,
that's not being chucked out. That's amazing.
You can use it in your own garden, and we were just talking about because a lot of times people don't know what to do with it. Like they love the idea of composting, but then they don't have a garden or they don't grow their own yet. And we're thinking we should kind of initiate a compost collection system and then to contribute it to the people that actually need it and have gardens. Yeah, there's so much potential in growing your own in the garden business.
I think it's a very untapped market, I would say, at the moment.
Yeah, an untapped skill as well. And like you said, a skill that's dying out maybe with our generation that needs to be brought back. But I think there are a lot of people who are really interested in learning.
Yeah.
Who want to
and
their own and make sure.
And it's surprisingly a lot. Like when we look at our clients, we have families and they're like 30s, 40s, but we also have a lot of older couples in their 50s and 60s that go back to gardening and actually want to learn because they never, like, they always tell me, oh yeah, my parents did it back in the days, but I never, tried it or never had success. And now that they have time, they want to start it. And it's actually some of our best clients, because they're really, they're really engaged and motivated. They come back. And there's always another question, and you get another email. Oh, what can I do now? And yeah, it's
That's amazing.
reviving.
So back to the kitchen garden.
Yeah.
What kind of location would you put it in? I mean, you're not going to be able to just stick it anywhere, are you? Wherever you've got a gap.
No.
I mean, what are we looking for in terms of the best place to place it?
Ideally, the sunniest spot in your yard.
Yeah.
If you want to grow tomatoes, you should at least have 8 hours of sunlight a day.
Gosh, as much as that.
Yeah. If you want to grow root vegetables, you need about like 6 hours, and leafy greens and herbs about 4 hours minimum. So it really depends. I know a lot of people live in the cities or have a lot of trees around their yard and deal with a lot of shade. So I always say it's better to start somewhere with a garden. Just grow the stuff that really matches your conditions, than not starting at all. But if you have the time, then take that time, observe your yard, observe the area around your house, and find the sunniest spot. And you can do that with creating a sun shade map, which is always the technique I advise to use. It takes a bit of time and discipline to do it, but in the end, you can really figure out over time where the location is. Because for us now, the same situation for you too. I think right now the sun is still relatively low on the horizon. All day long, the shade. I mean, we have a lot of trees and hedges around too. So our kitchen garden area actually right now is very shady, but we're not growing anything there right now, so it doesn't matter. But in about 2-3 months, when it really matters and the sun will be higher up in the sky, the shade will be much less because of the different angle the sun has. And we observed that before we put the garden in. And so we figured out that actually the area over there, where you would think right now, oh no, just don't put a garden there, doesn't look good, is actually the best spot we have, because it's the sunniest spot in the growing season.
Oh, that's really interesting, actually. Yeah, to do a shade map. I hadn't
Yeah.
thought about that, and then the different seasons as well. Because
Yeah, it takes a bit of time, but yeah, you just make a top view sketch basically of your house and yard. Make a couple of copies of it so you don't have to sketch it out every time again. And then go out in the morning at 8, and then again at 12 to 1, and in the afternoon again 3 to 4. And then mark out the shade areas. Do it in spring, in summer, and in fall and winter, and then you have a really, really good idea of the situation around your house. And and the other aspect is, of course, that you want to put the garden where you actually pass by regularly. Otherwise, you might forget the garden, and then it's just, if you put it in the last corner of the house or of your garden, then you just forget about it, and it's not going to be nice. And you won't use it that much. But if it's close, like next to the driveway, or where you enter the house, just observe how you move around in your yard. And another aspect is the water connections. You don't want to put the garden far away from where your water access is.
Yeah, like mine. I have to make 15 journeys every day with the watering cans.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Might be fun in the beginning, but when there's a drought, then it's not so much fun anymore.
So, Eric, what do you normally build your raised beds out of if you're starting a garden, a raised bed garden?
Well, we've started out, I use white cedar because it's indigenous to our area. I have a couple sawmills in the area, literally within, 20 kilometers of where we live. So It's a fairly sustainable practice for me to go and get it. And it's very tough wood. It doesn't rot very easily. I mean, all wood is going to rot over time,
Yeah.
but this wood doesn't rot easily. It's resistant to a lot of bugs. Bugs don't really like it. So, I mean, given the option, I'd like to use Western red cedar, but coming from the other end of the country, it's not really a sustainable practice. So I use what we have over here. Further to that, I mean, you could use metal beds, galvanized steel beds. And I think it was you we were talking to one time.
Yeah. Oh,
How the soil inside actually gets warmer.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a good point. We could also use cordon steel. I'm not a big fan of galvanized steel because of the chemicals they use for galvanization, and also just making steel pours a ton of CO2 into the atmosphere. The galvanizing process itself pours a ton of CO2 into the atmosphere also. I like cordon steel. You make that steel, you can let it kind of weather in your garden. It looks nice when it's weathered. You get it pretty thick. It'll last really, really long. That would be my favorite option for a steel bed.
Yeah,
And,
they're nice when they age a little bit, aren't they? Then they look okay, don't they, when they're new? But they always look better when they've kind of aged into the garden and they're a little bit, rustic looking, I think.
Yeah.
I think they look beautiful, actually. Just a little bit of weathering, and they look so nice. Unlike like our cedar, the white cedar that we use, it kind of turns gray. If you don't protect the outside, after a couple of years, it kind of turns gray. I mean, it still looks really nice. Even in our garden, it still looks really nice. But a lot of people kind of, don't like that. They'd rather go for the wood look. So yeah, you could protect the outside with a coating.
Yeah.
I could talk about this all day, honestly.
No, I love talking about wood. But what do? Do you paint it with a varnish or a stain or something just to give it a little bit more durability?
Yeah, actually, I could use oil. What was that oil that we used?
Linseed.
Yeah, linseed oil.
That was actually
That's a
from
nice natural
Sweden.
thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I got that
Yeah.
from Scandinavian countries, yeah. Which was really nice. I mean, I do use a water seal sometimes. Like it's like almost like a plastic that you paint on the outside, but you can only use it on the outside of the bed, right? Because you don't want any leaching of that stuff into your bed or anything like that. But I tend to not use that kind of stuff. I like oils a lot better, more natural materials, which are much better. I mean, you have other options because I understand people now with the economy the way it is and everything being expensive, and we kind of people look for other cheaper ways to do things. And our beds are not exactly cheap. They're not exactly the cheapest option out there. So, I try to could use hemlock, for instance, instead of cedar, which is a lot cheaper. However, it will rot a lot faster. You're looking at replacing those beds within 5 years. Whereas a cedar bed, that'll last you at least, what I'd say, at least 10 years, even longer if you took care of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to rot at some point, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess as well, it's an initial expense, but
Yeah.
the satisfaction and results that you get from growing everything yourself has really got to outweigh it, hasn't it?
Yeah, and if you use the thick boards as we do.
Oh yes, I use full 2-inch thick boards instead of the plain stuff that you get at the hardware store. I like to get rough cut from the sawmill for that reason, because you're getting, your thickness at least 3 to 5/8 thicker than you would normally get at the store. So, it lasts a little bit longer. It's a little bit better.
Fabulous. So what do you suggest that somebody would plant as their first plants then, if we're going to plant something outside? Where would you start? Would you launch straight into tomatoes, melons? I'm hoping to grow melons this year. No.
They are tricky. Oh yeah. No, not melons. Definitely not. Yeah, as we said before, like definitely herbs.
Yeah.
Parsley, chives are very easy to grow.
Spinach. Spinach is great.
Spinach, it's true, yeah. Spinach, leafy greens, kale. I'm a big kale fan. Radishes. And the nice thing about the radishes is that they are, you can watch them grow, and within a month you can harvest them. Most of the other stuff takes a bit longer. So especially for beginner gardeners, and if you garden with children, you want plants that, just grow quickly so you can harvest quickly, see the success and have the fun. But yeah, sticking to leafy greens, root vegetables, even carrots. Carrots take a while though, but I find them relatively easy to grow if you kind of make sure that you thin them out and don't.
That's probably
Because
my
the
problem.
seeds are so tiny.
I'm hopeless with carrots. I don't know why.
Especially in a raised bed, though. We actually have a client who grew a 2-foot carrot.
Yeah.
Like in her raised bed. The carrot was as tall as her child.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was really amazing, actually.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that would win at the agricultural show.
Yeah, definitely. But that shows what you can do when you have the really good loose soil. There's nothing in there that stops the root from growing. And that was a thing. That was really good surprise when we harvested that.
That was amazing.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit as well about your kitchen garden planner, because I've got one and I love it. It's absolutely brilliant. And well, actually, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you talk about it.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that planner, I came up with that idea because of the initial situation we were in when we moved to Canada and there was no guideline. And I also wanted to keep track somehow of our garden success, to see what did well, what was not, so what was not a big success. And there was just nothing, just the way I wanted it on the market. So I created this planner last year myself. We started 2 years ago with a wall calendar, because I wanted to make the tips easier available for people, of when to start, what seeds in our region, when is our last frost date, when can you plant outside, because the advice we got was, oh, you cannot garden before the 1st of June. And I was, hang on a second. Well, we can. And yeah, just to make this knowledge more available for people, that they actually can start to garden in April, and way into the winter, November, even December, you can still grow, of course not actively grow, but still harvest from the things you planted for the fall garden. And and with the planner, I try to make things easier. I have a seed starting, where you can keep track of your seed starting success in there. There is even a meal planner in there that you can make notes. Okay, what is growing right now in my garden? What do I want to cook with it? What ingredients do I need to get from the store? So you kind of, it works out in the end. It's called the garden to kitchen planner for a reason. And I also marked out all the important dates for, the one that I have for download is for Eastern and for Southern Ontario, which works with a lot of other regions too. I have a list online. When you go on that site, you can see that even though it's called the Eastern Ontario Planner, but it's for so many more places, in Canada and worldwide. I think it matches your area as well.
It does, yeah. It's really accurate, and it's brilliant because I love the design of it. It's so pretty. It's really nice to look at. But I love all the tips that you put on each month as well. It's time to see, it's time to look at that. It's just to remind you.
Exactly,
give you advice as well if you really don't know where to start and what you need to plant. It's fantastic. I love
these are the little things you just forget on your daily basis, and say, oh yeah, I wanted to start a garden this year, and all of a sudden it's April and you forgot to sow those seeds, and then and with the planner, I hope it helps people to just keep track and stay put on the task too.
It's a beautiful thing. And I'm going to put a link at the bottom of the podcast as well.
Thank
So
you.
everybody can have a look and go over there and to your website and have a look at the planner and hopefully get it, because it is really useful. I mean, even now, you know, we're into February, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Still get
And it's on sale right now because it's I think $10 for the ebook
wow.
right now. So
That is amazing. Well, this has been great. Thank you very much. And is there anything else that you want to talk about with the kitchen garden and kitchen garden planning?
we could continue and go on and on. I mean, we haven't even touched really plans and planting plants. So yeah, there's a lot more we could talk about, but we'll probably do that in another meeting.
Yeah, that's for the next one, isn't it? That would be amazing. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Ines and Eric Batterton from My Nordic Garden, for sharing tips and secrets on how to grow a kitchen garden in our quite harsh sometimes northern climate. And like I said earlier, you can go to their website, which is mynordicgarden.ca, and navigate from there to find their beautiful garden planner, the calendars, and all the information that they have on there. There's so much. So if you're a gardener or maybe you want to start gardening, this is a great place to start and get some inspiration. So I suggest you grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and go and take a few quiet minutes and have a browse. I'm going to put the link below this podcast so you can go straight there. And I will see you in the next episode. See you soon. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters so you can get an email when I release a new episode. It's a quick and easy way to keep up with all things Nordic living. Please visit livinganordiclife.com. You can listen to Living a Nordic Life on lots of podcast apps, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and plenty of others. If you've enjoyed the Living a Nordic Life podcast, why not leave me a rating? So that's the end of Living a Nordic Life for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.